So, as you'll have seen on World of Railways during this event, we are hosting a series of virtual interviews. Everything's virtual. I might even be a hologram next week. Anyway, our latest guest is Paul Appleton of the Hornby Collectors Club. And, well, Paul, I'm afraid to say I don't actually have a copy of the Collectors Club to hand. They are all in the office. But I believe you might have a copy nearby where we can have a look at. There we go, Hornby Collectors Club. So, I mean, crikey, this is a club that's been going for quite a few years now, but not as many as Hornby, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a big year this year for Hornby. Not many companies get to be 100 years old. So, yeah, it's a big year. And of course, a special programme of releases. The events that were planned, obviously, sadly, haven't been able to take place. But the magazine continues, the club continues, and the models continue to be released.
So, I suppose the main question that I've got to ask is Hornby Collectors Club, what's in it for me? Why would I want to join? What does it offer? And what can I expect to read in the Hornby Collectors Club?
Well, it's an interesting question. It costs £28 for somebody to join the club, and you get your quarterly magazine. As a member of the club, you get access to exclusive models, limited editions, discounts and other promotions from time to time. For example, when the railways are running and some of the exhibitions are running, there's discounts available to its membership. You get a little, you get a loco each year as well. When you sign up at low 40 club loco, so it's a nice little package. And the magazine itself, I mean, it's a good sized magazine, 50 odd pages, full color A4, and it's like many magazines in that it has a mixture of the real railway and model railways, lots of little projects and things that people can do. Of course, you know, it delivers the news about Hornby and what it's up to, its forthcoming plans. It'll look back at some of its own projects and how a new model has evolved, going back to the basics where the development team are out there with tape measures and all kinds of 3D imaging cameras and stuff, and first start their research before they even get to the stage where they're doing CAD drawings and so forth. So we'll look at that. We obviously review the models, and there's a lot more news around Hornby than just its models, of course. There's so much happening.
So it's a quarterly, isn't it?
Yeah, it comes out 4 times a year. So we have one coming out next week in July. So
busy then.
Yeah, so we've just gone to press with it, and it's as I say, it's out in a week or so, yeah, 4 times a year. So it's yeah, it keeps us busy.
Well, your background, of course, is in journalism. I mean, you had a bit of a hand there in sort of forming or at least starting off the creation of Model Rail by the column that you would write in Rail magazine. And of course, you also had a hand in the creation of Hornby magazine. So, what does the content? How does it differ in Hornby magazine to, say, something like one of the newsstand magazines? Would you say the average reader? What's their skill level like? How does that compare? Are they mostly collectors or are they mostly active modelers?
Yeah, I mean, we mustn't be fooled by the title of the magazine. It's called The Collector, but I mean, obviously there are people who will collect models, but many of the readers are, I mean, they're obviously all loyal to the Hornby brand, but they're modelers too. They're modelers in their own right. In terms of the level of experience, there are no guidelines on this. You can be the most experienced modeler in the world and be a member of the club. But we do try to pitch the modelling features more at the beginner's end of the market, so that people who are new to it and the youngsters, there's a high proportion of younger members in the club. So when we do step-by-step guides on how to, say, weather a diesel locomotive or build a card kit or any other project that we take on, we try and keep it fairly straightforward, nothing too complicated, not assuming knowledge. I think that's one of the things. It's all very well saying, and solder this.
Yeah.
But does our readership actually understand how to go about, for example, soldering and the correct techniques? So if we're going to tell people to do some soldering, we need to tell them how to go about that, rather than just assuming they've got the knowledge. So we don't take on anything too complicated. We've built kits and done various other things, modified existing things like scaled-ale buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've dismantled and rebuilt cars, all kinds of bits and pieces, painted figures. We've done all sorts of things over the period, but I'd say none of it was particularly complex. And wherever possible, we try and use Hornby products so that it's very accessible for people. And stuff that you can buy fairly cheaply, maybe at a swap meet or a model railway exhibition.
Yeah.
So that people aren't going out spending £100 on a nice loco and then they're making a mess of it or being frightened to actually do anything with it.
Yeah.
So we often say, go out and buy a second-hand wagon or coach as your first project, and this is what you can do to improve it. And the feedback we get is very good. It's very encouraging. And I'd like to think also, because we have a lot of prototypical sort of articles as well, historical features, that kind of thing, that there is something in there for everybody. Yes, there are reviews of the models and things that people will get in the national press on the newsstand. We try and do things a little bit differently. We'll always then have a feature about the real thing as well. We'll put a bit of a history in there, and but really, there's no limit to what goes in there.
So you've been editing this since 2016?
Yeah, I mean, the first issue I did was in spring 2016. So prior to that, it was sort of a 16-page promotional, more like a brochure, I guess. It was obviously full of Hornby's own advertising. There's a little bit of editorial in there. And possibly that was a phase when maybe the membership wasn't perhaps getting the value for money that it would like to have. So my brief was, look, we need something that's a bit more substantial. So from that point on, yes, we took it up to 50-odd pages and really brought in some good writers, good experienced people, a great team. People like
you're very fortunate to have the sort of the massive archive and the wealth of Hornby products with its 100-year anniversary that's happening this year, to be able to tap into with all these models that have been released over the years.
That's right, and people like Pat Hammond, who's done the history, the 100-year history book. I mean, he's got a great archive, and he's very helpful when we need to access some archive material. And of course, Hornby themselves at the head office, which I don't work from, but Hornby themselves have a good access to good archive, and so yes, it's quite useful. Quite often, it's really nice going back and looking at, like, if a new model comes out, like the Princess that came out recently, to actually make comparisons with earlier versions of the models, and to get all that history and the pictures and stuff from Hornby. It's quite nice. It's quite good.
Yeah, that's going to be. Yeah. So obviously, all the events that we know about, except this virtual one, are cancelled for the foreseeable at the moment. There's no signs of anything getting back in terms of large gatherings anytime soon. So what do you miss the most about events yourself? Because obviously the Collectors Club does have a stand that tours exhibitions.
Yeah, the club tends to go out obviously when Hornby are attending a show. So Hornby unfortunately won't be attending any events during the remainder of 2020. So the club stand won't be out either, which is very sad. So we'll miss that. But me personally, I try and get to as many of the model railway exhibitions as I can. And like everybody else, thank goodness for the virtual model railway show.
Right.
Because, we've all been starved, haven't we? And thank goodness for the internet and social media. So yes, for me personally, not being able to get out to the shows, to meet up with people, to talk to the manufacturers, the traders, the exhibitors, and we're all missing out on a fundamental part of our hobby.
So I guess you've got a little bit of a glimpse of things to come from Hornby. Is there anything in particular that we can look forward to?
Well, the latest thing to arrive is the Great Western Large Prairie, which arrived with us a couple of weeks ago. We've done a piece in this latest issue of the Collector, and of course it will be appearing anytime soon, of course, in the national press as well. So that's the latest offering, and of course it's the first of many variants. And it's actually the last of the models that were from the range announced for 2019. Right. So it's lagging behind. It's the tail end Charlie in many respects. It's the last of the releases that were announced at the beginning of last year. So it's been long awaited, and there's been a number of delays. So it was great to actually see it turn up and to be able to photograph it and run our eye over the model. It's absolutely superb.
It looks fantastic, yeah.
And of course, the other recent releases, things like the rocket, which of course appeared in the centenary range, and of course now it's being released into the usual range. So Evening Star, the limited edition of the Evening Star, is the next one that we're expecting. So yes, it's that program's rolling out, and of course the idea is with the centenary range that there's a different model for each decade. Yeah, some iconic models that have been re-released with their traditional packaging, which of course is all important.
I think that's fantastic, that packaging. When I saw it at that release day in Margate, I just thought, wow, they've captured the whole look and the appearance and the aesthetics of
that's right. And of course we're seeing the names like Rovex, Triac, and names from the past that we haven't seen for such a long time.
Bassett Loken,
absolutely, Bassett Loke, and that iconic packaging. It's just so nostalgic, and I think, and also we've got the sort of the little replicas, the little dinky models as well, and all those, and it's just for people, it brings back memories. Absolutely brilliant. And all these, of course, are limited edition models as well. So in time, they will have a collector value. And so as well as it being nice to have these lovely iconic models, they're a great investment as well. So yeah, I'm
sure there are plans to do things with these models in the Hornby Collectors Club as well, in the magazine. So there you go. That's Paul Appleton, Hornby Collectors Club magazine editor. And if you've got something you'd like to see in the Hornby Collectors Club magazine, perhaps an article or an idea, just drop him a line. And thank you very much for your time, Paul. It's been great. It's been a pleasure. Long may it continue.
Yeah, let's hope the weekend continues to be as much fun as it's been so far.
Fingers crossed, eh? All right. Take care. See you around.